Welcome to The Culture Edit, content for work and more. It's a weekly roundup where we talk about the latest news in people strategy, company culture, and what's happening in the world today. All right, we're at the office. It's a Sunday afternoon. It's actually pretty nice out. It was supposed to start raining, I think, but we got a nice little ride in this morning. We couldn't do the group ride because we didn't want to be so destroyed that we couldn't use our brains, which was the case yesterday after Tucker. But now we're here and we're recording the third episode. We're pretty excited about it.
A rare Sunday recording. We tried to record on Friday, but we broke our rule, making it last thing on Friday, and we both sounded like we were in POW camps, so we decided to do Sunday instead. And you said the weather's nice. It's actually real feel of 115 degrees with like 98% humidity, but to each his own.
I mean, depends what you think nice is, but I prefer my face melting off.
Well, we were supposed to be in Miami where your face really could have melted off, but we had some work meetings come up this week that needed to be in person, so we came back from Florida just to do this here. So,
which is great. You know, it's always good to be busy. Foregoing a Miami trip is always a little bit sad, but we'll be back down soon. We're trying to plan, maybe when it gets a little bit cooler, because it is pretty brutal riding your bike in Miami.
We need to go visit the new Zeal concept store.
Yes.
It's finally open.
Very excited about the Zeal concept store. If you go to Miami and you ride bikes, or you just enjoy a nice cafecito or maybe a croissant. I'm not sure exactly what they have there right now. But stop by and say hi to our friends at Zeal.
Shout out to Gunter and Enrique and Victoria. Yeah, so we'll be down there soon.
All right, so do we want to talk about just some quick updates on where the podcast is going and some future guests? And want to dig into, I like digging into the demographics. So every day I check podcasters to see the different demographics, and we found out that we've hit the youngest cohort so far, the 6 to 8 year old.
8 to 10.
8 to 10 cohort. Our niece and nephew tuned in last week, and it was the most adorable thing because they called us afterwards and we're so excited because Aunt Nikki and Uncle Chad are quote unquote famous now. So yeah, we've regained cool aunt and uncle status, I think, if we had ever lost it.
So shout out to Jude and Paisley.
Yeah, the cutest kids.
Yeah, and so otherwise demographically we're pretty young still, but you said male females 50-50, and right?
Yeah, it was predominantly female at first, so shout out to my ladies for all the support. But now it's skewing pretty even. I think it's almost 50-50 this week.
Well, you know, the old guys, it takes them a while to figure out how to work the technology. So
let's talk about what our plans are for the future of this podcast, because people have been asking, is it just gonna be the two of us every week, or are we gonna have guests? And the answer to that is a resounding: we will have guests. It will not just be the two of us blabbing at you every single week.
There's a guest list. There are people that have already been spoken to. Effectively, that's my job, is getting us guests, and we're going to have some good ones. We're going to have business leaders, definitely going to have some business leaders in Atlanta and beyond. But we'll also have some other interesting folks, I think, culturally, that will be able to join us, that will be really interesting to folks that listen, whether they're some folks possibly in the fashion industry, some folks in sports, athletics, obviously cycling, we know a lot of people.
Photography.
Yeah,
writing. I mean, the goal of the Culture Edit is to go beyond just workplace culture. You know, there's a culture that is inherently woven through so many different things in our lives, and there's so many subcultures within different cultures. And so our goal is to just tap into all of that and bring some interesting content of, maybe you're not in a certain subculture, and it'll be interesting to learn about that subculture.
But always it'll come back to work culture. Yeah, so we'll have guests coming soon. Quite a few folks we've talked to that are really excited about it. We had one guest that will be part of this in the near future. She was in our office on Friday. She saw the microphones and all the equipment, and she realized I think it was pretty serious. And we're going to have to figure out a way to make people feel comfortable. We did get new microphones, by the way, and thank you for everyone pointing out that I sounded much quieter than Nikki.
I'm just loud.
Yeah, shout out to Brendan for even mentioning that during the
And
middle of the
Michael.
Tucker run. And Michael, yeah, exactly.
Also, we always are open to feedback because, well, we knew that. So Chad and I differ on a couple things, and it's our philosophy on getting things out to the world. And so I'm definitely in the camp of just get it done, get it out. It doesn't, and we course correct as needed. Chad is more of a perfectionist, not the get it done, get it out, more the get it done, review, make it perfect, then get it out. And I think where that is a really good balance is that I would probably just shoot off anything and everything because of, my belief system, but he really reins me in. And with that podcast, we knew that the sound wasn't quite up to par, but we came to an agreement that we just had to get the first one out just to rip that band-aid off. So,
Yeah, and like I said, we had recorded many before that.
yes. And I
That,
finally, I was just like, we've got to do this. We got to get it out.
yep. Okay, so hopefully this sounds a lot better.
Yeah. Also, I'm the one editing all of it, so, take it easy on my editing skills because I'm learning.
It's true.
It's pretty fun though. I'm not gonna lie. I've listened to a lot of YouTube videos on editing, so it's cool.
So guests are coming. Some follow-ups for previous episodes and newsletters.
Yeah. So back to last week, the 30th year high school reunion that we drove down to Tallahassee for. It was quite the experience. So I had, the week prior had said I loved awkward situations. I thrived in that, for my own sick entertainment, and the universe delivered. Chad's high school girlfriend was at my side like a stage 5 clinger for 2 nights in a row. And I wasn't sure if she was gonna, put a roofie in my drink or adopt me because it was interesting. But, it was fun because I kind of roll the punches on that stuff. So, she gave me great skincare tips.
Did she?
Yeah, she was just like, when you're my age, make sure over the next 20 years you'll laser your face off in the meantime. And I was like, okay, solid. That's good advice.
Yeah.
Laser my face off.
Yeah, so a girl that I literally have not spoken to in 30 years. Well, I guess once, 10 years
Yeah,
ago.
10
the
years
20th.
ago.
Yeah, so the two of you are best friends now. That's really,
Besties.
couldn't have called that in high school.
I can be friends with anyone.
Yeah. My other friends are really getting a kick out of it too. Claire thought it was hilarious.
Everyone felt extremely uncomfortable, but I was rolling with it.
Good.
Also canoeing. Update on that. We ended up getting a canoe, and not 2 kayaks.
Or a ducky.
Or duckies. And I kind of pulled that switcheroo at the last second when we rolled up. I said, "Let's just switch to a canoe," and Chad was all happy, but he didn't realize that the reason I wanted to switch is because I was so tired. I just wanted to be a passenger princess.
Hungover.
So I just passenger princessed my way up and down the river, and Chad was he was the paddler.
And then I surprised you with a true Tallahassee native tradition where we went to Cherokee Sink, which you didn't even know existed.
Yeah, it was cool.
Yeah.
Was
So
really
this is
cool.
a sinkhole in the Panhandle. There's a lot of sinkholes. This one is kind of locals only.
Not like the one on Ponce Avenue
Same idea,
or Ponce de Leon Road,
but
wherever it is.
but not in the middle of the road. And it is you have to walk a mile to get to it, which
It's
is
a hard mile though.
which is new.
It's not an easy mile.
But it's yeah, locals only. It was all young people from the Panhandle out there with their floaties and beautiful, beautiful crystal blue water. Pretty big sinkhole. I mean, it's like a lake, but lots. I think you were pretty shocked by the amount of soft shell turtles that were swimming around with people.
Massive. I mean, it was like Little Mermaid. You're swimming next to your best friend because these turtles were so huge.
Yeah. Okay. Other follow-ups, I think relevant to us. We've been binging
The Bear.
The Bear, and it's
So
lived up to
good.
expectations.
It's so good. I mean, talk about a show that just really, and I know we talked about this last time, but exemplifies the impacts of the way you treat people in workplace culture and the way workplace culture impacts customer experience. I mean, there's really no better metaphor than this show. And the way that Carmi invests in his employees in a really subtle way.
And how he invests in them by sending them to training.
Yeah. Yeah.
and they don't even know what they're training for. Again, it's a show about a very successful chef who comes back home to take over his brother's restaurant and make it a fine dining establishment. And so it's entrepreneurial, it's workplace culture. There's a great article in the New York Times this morning, Sunday morning, that'll be in the newsletter that talks about this. It's funny because we've been talking about it for a long time. We haven't seen anyone correlate the bear to workplace culture, but this article does, and it's fantastic. I think every business leader should watch this show. It's inspirational leadership, and it's funny that they even intentionally talk about finding your purpose. So they talk about everyone there finding their purpose, and in particular, cousin finding his purpose was really, I think, probably the pivotal moment of the show
For sure.
for him to understand why he exists and what how his value of his work is so meaningful to the rest of them, and that's what people, even in big companies, want to know. They want to know whether or not their work is meaningful, and they want to be inspired by leadership.
So that leads us, staying in within the restaurant restaurant talk.
Oh, speaking of restaurants,
Yeah. Kevin Maxey, our good friend. What's he
celebrity
doing?
chef
Celebrity chef?
Kevin Maxey is had a press release and a couple of articles in the AJC last week about opening a new restaurant. Finally,
We've been waiting to be able to dictate a menu to him that
yeah,
serves our own needs.
yeah, we're consulting on the menu currently. Like every Tuesday and Thursday, we're giving him consultative services of cacio e pepe. And for those of you that don't know, so Kevin Maxey was part of the Ford Fry restaurant group for many, many years,
He's the brainchild of Superica.
the mastermind of Superica. Hopefully, we don't get sued by Ford for saying that, but
I don't
it's
think he'll listen to our podcast ever.
but if you like Superica, then you've got a good idea of what Kevin's capable of doing. And so we're really excited. It's going to be an Italian restaurant. It's going to be in Chastain area. So he's going to be one of the landmark tenants there. And there's it's in the newsletter, so you can read all about it.
Everything he does turns to gold. So go ahead and mark something on your calendar now
Off the bike.
yeah, yeah. That's a topic for another day. But seriously, mark it on. Go find the article. Mark it on your calendars. Make some reservations. And we'll be hopefully some of the first ones to try some of
Yeah,
his new food.
can't wait.
Yeah, we'll do a review. I'll do an honest review.
Oh, that'll be fun.
Yeah, that'll be fun. Le Tour de France.
Yeah, so biggest news in the world.
Why did I say Le Tour de France? I think it's just Le Tour, Le Tour. Or is it de
No,
France?
it's different.
Okay, so I got it right.
Le Tour de France.
I was just waiting for Goose to like pop up and correct my French. Just like
Start
pop
laughing
up,
at you?
pop up from behind that table over there.
Yeah.
Be like, no, 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 no.
Yeah, le Tour de France. Parlez-vous français? So tour started, biggest sporting event in the world. Started yesterday, Saturday. So by Monday, we'll be almost three stages in. Very exciting first stage. Just like you couldn't have ever predicted this. Twin brothers coming to the line.
You're gonna ruin it for
alone.
the people that haven't watched the first stage.
If they haven't watched the first stage by Monday, then forget it.
That's true. Loser.
Yeah, so two twin brothers. If you don't know cycling, there's two twin brothers, Adam and Simon Yates. They're from Great Britain. They're both very good.
Identical twins.
Identical twins.
Like 29 seconds apart, I think you said.
Yeah, 26 seconds apart.
Interesting.
They race for different teams, and this has never happened before. I think the question is, are they capable of winning the Tour de France? One of them has won the Tour of Spain, but the answer is probably no. Like neither one of them are going to win the Tour de France unless some really freak thing happens. But them coming to the line together and then sprinting each other just brings a tear to your eye.
Yeah, it's cool. It's
Yeah.
cool to watch.
And then today, after today's stage, I'm curious, are you still sticking with your prediction that Jonas Vinegar
Vinigo.
is going to win the Tour?
Yeah, I'll stick with him.
He's already 11 seconds down to Bagacha.
I'm gonna stick with my guy.
Bagacha.
I gotcha. Gotcha.
I'm going with Bagacha.
Okay.
I like-
I'm
I
gonna
like
stick
it.
with my guy. I like him too. I like both of them. They're great.
What do you like about Vinegar?
I don't know. He's like, I think I like his work ethic. Because, like, when I read that article about how, So many of these guys, since they're little kids, they have everything. And they have special schooling so they can ride their bikes and race their bikes. And then, they have a lot of them have parents who have been in this sport for a long time, so they have that support. And they pretty much never have to have a real job. They ride their bikes and race their bikes all the time, and that's their job, which is cool. And it is a lot of work. But I think when I read the article about him being a fishmonger was it in Copenhagen? I know it was in Denmark, but
Yeah.
was it in Copenhagen?
Yeah.
So, having to work that hard, because that's hard work.
While he was training, while
While
he was
he
trying
was
to become a
train
professional cyclist.
Exactly, like he didn't have the luxury of mama and papa, you know, paying for him to do this, to make this a dream a reality. So I don't know. I think I love the underdog story.
It's pretty unusual. His story is definitely unusual. It's going to be a really, really, really exciting. And the fact that they're starting in the Basque Country is really cool. The first stage is normally boring, and this was like super exciting. Lots of climbing and attacking, and it's fun.
Do we want to start? I think let's dig into some of the content that's coming out in the culture edit this week and that has been happening in just the world of work in general. And so I think in the world of work this week, there's obviously four main things. So there's return to the office, but I feel like we've beat that over the head like a dead horse. There's culture wars. We can talk about that. There's performative D&I, which we touched on last week, but I think we want to continue to talk about that. And then, the probably the most pressing one this week is the impact of the affirmative action ruling. So let's start though.
Well, let me just touch. I know you don't want to talk about return to office because that's what we talk about all the time with everyone. But I do want to say we had another inspiring conversation with a business executive at a Fortune 100 company that totally gets it, that totally gets what we're talking about, that you're not going to force people to come back to work and they're going to be productive. You've got to inspire them to come back to work. And we're even kicking around ideas with him around getting the executives out of their offices and into the open space in the middle, having meetings out there and just letting people see them meet, like all these different little things that it's so cool to see that a business executive at that level, before we even talked to him, brought it up. He said he's the one that was like, we got to inspire people to come back to work because they have an amazing office.
Oh yeah, it's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah. So I
Well,
know we keep talking about it, but it's you got to plant your flag. You got to say, here's what we stand for. If we want everyone here, this is why. You got to find your people, and then you got to inspire them to come back.
Also, one thing that I notice every time we go to one of these fancy offices and there's no one actually using the common areas, it's because the leaders aren't using the common areas.
Yeah.
And so, if you're just an, average employee, you don't want to use the common areas to do your work because you're scared that someone's going to walk past your desk and not see you there because no one else uses the common areas above you. So I think leaders, if you're wondering, hey, I spent X millions of dollars on this cool beanbag space, go sit in the beanbag
Yeah.
and have your own meetings if you want people to use it, because I think that's the only way.
Yeah. Yeah. And a great example of someone that does that the right way, Children's Healthcare of Atlanta.
Definitely.
They have an amazing campus, and their common areas, they have really, really cool, like Google level common area, and especially their cafeteria. Their executives, all of them, Ron, Linda, Donna Highland, you see them down there eating.
Oh yeah, you bump into the executive leadership team constantly,
Exactly. And
'cause
that's really cool for people.
for sure. So,
Yeah.
hats off to them.
Okay, so
Okay.
that's it on return to work. So culture wars, I think what we've seen has been really interesting in the last 4 to 5 months around organizations that are becoming more and more reluctant to weigh into social issues because of the backlash that they're getting. Either if you use Bud Light as an example, Target as an example, Starbucks, there's been a lot of them that are now starting to say, hey, this is affecting our bottom line. Whereas before in 2020, they thought, and they were correct, and that their employees wanted them to weigh in on social issues. We're now seeing employees are caring a lot less about that. And I think a lot of that is a result of they're just tired. They're tired of hearing about confrontation. They're tired of experiencing confrontation, but they're also worried about the economy. I mean, we know that right now the number one thing employees are concerned about is the stability,
Financial stability of the
financial
company that they
stability.
work for.
Right. And so they're like, let's not do something that's going to jeopardize that big company.
I also think, it's hard because companies their hearts might have started in the right place, but then someone somewhere at the company, I think, put a little bit of like too much of maybe in a personal agenda spin on things. And so then you're having these really big, loud campaigns, whether it's, Target, you can go read all about that, like their swimsuits that they came out with. And the campaign might not align with the majority of your customers.
Yeah. That Target is definitely an
And I
example of that.
think that that is something that needs to be seriously thought through at the leadership level. You have to consider your customers, you have to consider their values, whether they align with your values still.
So yeah, I mean that's one thing that we've been talking to a lot of peers about, a lot of clients is really positioning around culture wars and what are we doing in how we communicate around these really important social topics. And it's going to be something we're going to continue to have to figure out what's right and what's wrong. And I think it's going to depend on the organization, and it's going to depend on what matters to them and what matters to the people that work there and who their customers are.
Yeah, and it's a lot about alienation too. Are you leaning on one thing because you think it'll get you media attention, but then alienating so many people that have supported you for so long? So I think you just have to step back and look at that
Yeah.
as a whole.
But and again, yeah, so that leads us right into performative D&I, which is something that we've spent a lot of time talking about over the last probably 6 months, if not even longer. And it's something that we're seeing a lot more studies being written about. That effectively, if you don't know what this performative D&I is, it's the idea that organizations make commitments to diversity, equity, and inclusion 3 years ago. They really haven't moved the needle at all for diversity initiatives or equity initiatives. Inclusion, yes, and that's where most have focused. Is that if you've heard of employee resource groups, setting those up, being more sensitive to underrepresented individuals in organizations. Those certainly there's been great strides in the last 3 years, but when it comes to actual diversity and equity initiatives, even though organizations said they were committed, they really haven't been able to move the needle.
Yeah, and I think that's an important thing to point out is diversity, equity, and inclusion gets lumped together, and I genuinely don't think it should be. Because I think if you lump it all together, then people inherently will just do whatever the easiest thing is. And then forget about the other two things and then say, oh, we checked the box, we're done. And so, yes, having celebrations for people is great. It should obviously continue. Making everyone feel welcome, making everyone feel included, being empathetic is they're all obvious things that everyone should be doing, not just at work, but in life. But when you hang your hat on, okay, I sent out a survey, we had all these celebrations, we had all these months specially dedicated to people at work, we're done. Everyone's happy. I think that that's where we're seeing the problems crop up. And it's because we've lost focus on diversity and we've lost focus on equity. And so, what does that mean? Losing focus on diversity means we have not made strides in the same way we have with inclusiveness to hiring, attracting, and retaining diverse candidates, and also providing programs that allow those candidates to learn and thrive in the workplace and be promoted like everyone else.
Yeah, I mean that's what it comes down to is if we're making a commitment to a more robust and diverse workforce, we need to have programs that are aligned with how we attract, how we hire, how we onboard, how we train, and then how we develop skills. There's an article I think that's really interesting in the culture edit this week about skills development because a lot of people think that that's technology skills. It's not technology skills, it's soft skills. But so how do we provide those individuals and then with those topics, and then how do we then move those individuals through talent mobility into different functions within the organization? So if you don't have programs that are thinking about those kind of 5 or 6 big issues, then making commitments and talking about your commitments from a diversity and equity. Oh, and by the way, in the equity side, that's a compensation topic. I mean, that's you really start getting pretty sophisticated when you have to look at tens of thousands of employees and their equity. But if you're not actually doing those things, it becomes, I think, it becomes very difficult to communicate authentically with your people because we say this all the time. People are not stupid. So you've got to really have smart people thinking about how do we develop initiatives to impact those programs, and then communicate around those. I think a big challenge has been organizations and leaders, business leaders want to make those commitments. They say those things, and then they turn to their HR functions to make the programs and the initiatives happen. And you've got HR functions that either A, don't know how, don't have, or B, don't have the resources, or C, are very resistant to change. We see that all the
We've
time.
seen all of the above.
Yeah, so a lot of HR functions have been doing the same thing for a long time, and they just don't like change. And so,
And
yeah,
they haven't educated themselves on
correct.
all the different resources out there to attract all different types of people and how important that is. I think of a really good example, and this was a while ago. I mean, this was 8 years ago, I guess. When I worked at my old agency, we had a client that I think does diversity, equity, inclusion really well. And part of their diversity efforts were going out in the communities to meet people where they stand to conduct interviews. And so they would have a mobile van,
A mobile
and
mobile.
yeah, a mobile, it was just like a giant bus basically.
Okay.
And in the bus, people could walk in, sit down, have an interview, and then walk out and they'd hear, whether or not they got hired. But the whole point with that was they realized that they weren't getting people for a lot of remote jobs. So these weren't jobs that were in the headquarters. These weren't jobs that needed to sit in a desk, but they weren't getting applicants from very diverse neighborhoods because of lack of transportation, lack of funds to be able to, you know, get places or even buy a suit or something. Like a lot of people will not apply to a job because they don't feel that they can present themselves in a way that they're confident in an office setting. And so they went out to these communities and made it really comfortable for people to just walk up, have an interview in a way that they felt, confident. And I thought that was a really great way to reach out to communities without and just expecting everyone to come to you. Like these big companies, like you have the money. It's employees that don't have the money to come to you, so you should go to them if you're truly engaged in diversity efforts.
Yeah, that's a great example.
So,
Well, good.
in equity, I think we talk about that a lot with clients and employees because it's something we constantly have to communicate around.
Compensation is at the enterprise level. So when an organization has thousands, tens of thousands of employees, is so incredibly complicated and sophisticated. And it's just because there's a matter of so many variables involved. And it's something that is very difficult to change. But we do see a lot of organizations hyper focused on this right now. And I think there's a lot of factors leading to that. I think there's a lot of people reconsidering how we pay and compensate people as a result of workplace flexibility. And so I think with those considerations that are happening that are unrelated to diversity and inclusion efforts, there's a real opportunity to really think about how we pay people and who we're paying.
For sure.
Yeah.
So, do we want to talk about the impact of the affirmative action ruling on the future of work?
Yeah, I haven't seen a whole lot of articles. I think there was one in the Wall Street Journal that mentioned this. And we've already had a couple of questions from folks about this decision. So, in case you're not aware, the Supreme Court on Wednesday or Thursday of last week issued a decision effectively banning universities from considering race at a systemic level for admissions. Universities can still look at race individually and the impact that's had on a person's life when they're making a decision,
Through essays and interviews.
but you cannot systemically just give a group of people preference on admissions based on their race. So you would think that does not have a direct impact on employers, but we think that it will eventually, because with all of the initiatives that organizations are focused on around diversity, like what we just talked about, there are going to be individuals that will see this affirmative action decision and realize that they can challenge or try to challenge those programs and believe that they will now, well, we think that they will be emboldened to challenge those programs because they will think that the Supreme Court will rule in their favor.
Chad and I had talked earlier, and I was like, well, give me an example of how that could come about. And so the best example, simplest example that we could think of is, let's say a company develops a women's leadership program. And obviously only women are allowed to apply and get into the program within this company. This
And
decision,
think about like it could be like we give them special skills training, we send them to different places, and then they ultimately get placed into a new type of
new
role.
roles, higher pay. I mean, some leadership training programs guarantee a certain pay increase
Yep.
after the program.
Yep.
And so women, this is a women's only leadership program. You get a 20% pay increase and you get to move to whatever country you want. I'm just making this up. Now people, men specifically, could feel emboldened to say that is discrimination based on gender. And I'm going to take this to the Supreme Court because I think that maybe these justices will back me up on it now.
And these type of challenges could have happened before this decision. I mean, these kind of type of challenges happen all the time. But what this decision did was it kind of waved the flag of if you feel this way, you should challenge.
Well, and that's the slippery slope, I think, happening across the country in the world right now is our country, as everyone knows, is so divided. So everyone's trying to do the like tit for tat. 10 years ago you did this, so now I'm going to do this, and we have control of this, so we're going to do this because when you had control, you did whatever. And for every decision made for that benefits one side, eventually there will be an equal rebuttal from the other side in a different way. Or again, like you said, it waves the flag of everything goes now when it comes to this.
So then let's think about the downstream effects of this emboldening more challenges. What that then will lead to is more and more organizations being reluctant to actually have the programs and initiatives that we just talked about that they need if they want to actually be committed to diversity, equity, and inclusion. They're going to be more reluctant to actually do those programs because they're going to say we're going to get sued if we do it.
Which is really scary because obviously I mean, we're firm believers that you need these programs.
Yeah, it comes down to the value of having a really smart and engaged workforce versus not. If you're in a company that relies on having really smart people give 110% every day, then you need to invest in these programs. But there's a lot of I think there has to be a lot of focus on what's best for our culture and what's best for our people, and worrying about whether or not we get sued, I think could lead those organizations to the wrong decision. Yeah, so I think that's it. So looking forward to this week. It's 4th of July. Again, we thought we were going to be in Miami. We're not. So we're here in Atlanta for the 4th. Maybe we'll check out the Peachtree Road Race. I know we know a few people that are running it and cheer them on and then get a ride in. Or we might head to the mountains for a ride.
Yeah, it depends on the weather.
Depends on the weather. And then otherwise, it's a normal grind work week for us. Really, the second half of the year is going to be really busy for us.
Yeah, it always is.
Well, it's funny. It is always really at the beginning of the year, and then the second half of the year, it's really busy.
It's
And
like a grind
yeah,
to
and
Christmas.
it's a lot of organizations that realized that they had initiatives that they wanted to get completed for the year, and all of a sudden say we need to start working on that in August. And so we're there to help them get it done. So yeah, I think that's it, and we'll have more Tour de France news. We do have our client-only event. Hopefully our friends don't get mad at us coming up. Taste of the Tour. It has traditionally been clients and friends, but we're doing a little bit different this year. It's going to be a programmed event at
We
Vinoteca.
rented out all of Vinoteca.
Yep.
Pretty excited.
Yeah, and so you'll have those invitations in your mailbox when you hear this, clients. And
I spent like an hour and a half talking about cheese pairings yesterday. It was fun.
That's true. So it'll be a programmed event with Vinoteca tasting wine and cheese, French cheese. And what's really cool is that Katie from Vinoteca is so energized about this that she's looking at the route. She's picked wine and cheese
From the specific areas that the
along with
route is
Rachel.
yeah, along with Rachel and Janine. Janine has been helping too.
Yeah.
They've gone to the exact areas on the route. So we're actually starting with Basque, so it won't all be French. Some will be Basque wines and cheeses, and then we'll move into France. But it's pretty exciting.
Yeah, we're very excited about it. So that is July
23rd.
23rd.
You're struggling with the date.
Yeah, July 20th. I have a lot of dates.
It's a
in my head.
Sunday. Yeah, it's a Sunday. It'll be
It's
fun.
going to be a Sunday fun day, so stay tuned on that.
Cool.
All right.
All right. Well, episode 3, wrapping it up. Thanks to all of our listeners so far. We really appreciate all the kind comments and support.